shellac at the beginning.
Even the shellac doesn't obscure the wood grain. It goes into the fibers.
Because you said you're rubbing the shellac
Yeah.
on here, so it's very
I don't
thin.
paint it on. Right. I'm rubbing it in so it seals all the fibers. But I like all this different treatments to every single one, inside, outside, opposites, carrying colors around. Those kind of things are fun. And it's not too slick. The ruggedness is there. No, it's not going to bother me. I wish it were a little more perfect, but
you do something really well that I always forget, which is that if you have I love bright colors, so if you put bright color next to bright color, next to bright color, it isn't bright. If you put it next to a dull color, it becomes really bright, and that's what I mean. Your show at Davidson is so bright, although there are all those muted colors in there.
So now, if it's right, then I would do it again. It's interesting. Now maybe I'll regret that I didn't use the pink, but it might be something else. So.
What are you gluing your sections, your segments together with?
I'm using, actually, hold it, you can look at, there's seams here. I made, in essence, my own double stick tape by using an adhesive that's called Goody.
Right.
It's like a extruded glue that comes on a carrier. And so I put my own Japanese paper on one side, the other side had the release, and then I trimmed it to size, and then I just used it and peeled it off as I go. So the Goody is great because it doesn't wrinkle. I used to try and do things like this with the PVA, and you'd get that little bit of wrinkling. So this stuff is an archival bonding. It's G-U-D-Y.
How's it? Do you know Roplex?
Well, I know of Roplex, but I've never used it.
Okay, because I was wondering, because Roplex is kind of similar, where you put it on kind of as a glue type thing, but I don't remember it.
It's already liquid?
Yeah, it's liquid, but I don't really think it wrinkled up the paper, and then it's pressure sensitive, so then when you push down on it, then, and it's also supposed to be archival. So.
But it comes as a sheet, or it comes?
No, it comes as in a bucket, as a liquid. So.
So anyway, this is already prepared, and you can get it at like bookbinders, supply places, or
I've only been able to find it online so far. You just Google it.
And actually, I kind of like that that's on the light side. Later, I end up not necessarily needing the paper stencil. I can just ink things directly, especially if I've reduced things and there's just certain sections. I sometimes hate the paper stencil. You know, it gets gummy, it wants to rip, and I have to keep, it's a step in between. So my goal is always to try and make a simple inking stage where I don't need it. But it's such a handy tool that I end up using it all the time. And various ways where I need to invent a way to ink up the stencil really happens. It's really helpful. I think it was staged. I had a planting. Exactly. Could you hold it up, some mackerel? Yummy. Okay, so it's a start. We see it starts to look interesting, and the colors start settling down on the impressions after the first one. I think my blending gets a little bit better, and it just helps. You know, the block is primed now with the colors on it, so it's just.
Like, let's say you're done with your run and you get ready to start carving more out or figuring your next stage. Do you just wipe that off with the rag and then you just go at it? Okay.
And actually, when I go to cut, I would only cut here in the areas where I had ink. So a little of this residue is good to remind me where it is that I had the ink. So, you know, why start cutting out here yet? Because I haven't put any color here. Unless I know I want white marks. But I would only do little bits of things in these areas, and then my next run I might actually make another paper stencil, but I might put ink in other areas, and maybe I'd want to do a passage across this whole sky area is what I was thinking I might want to do, since it could have all kinds of tiny little reduction marks going on.
You said earlier you'd make 12 runs? Is that what you said? Or-
Yes, it might take 12 passes or 12 runs to finish an image. And I don't know what all those stages are going to be. And literally, sometimes the last touch might be the addition of a little dot somewhere that I handprint, just using my doorknob and inking up that spot.
So if you're doing an addition and the wood grain shows through nicely at first, will it sort of disappear toward the end, or will it stay frozen?
If it does start disappearing, then I can use less ink. If I'm doing a big run and it's really started to disappear a lot, I could just buff the block down and then start inking again, because that'll open it back up. So, you know, that's my control way, is to be looking for that if it's there. But you can even see here between these two, it's a little bit heavier inked, there's a little bit less, but it still has a little fleckle of that wood grain in it, and I think that gives the sense of a live light. It's not flat, and the wood grain is a great contributor to that kind of activity and energy that's in there, which is another reason I don't want to do linoleum, I don't want to do Sintra, I don't want to do it as a drawing that gets transferred to a plate. I need that kind of a live light that's in there.
When you